Hello and welcome to STEM Stories with Mr. Ewing. The baseball stadium. We kind of take it for granted that when we want to go see any type of baseball game, we go to a stadium or a baseball field. But baseball fields and stadiums did not always exist. In the early days of the game, baseball was played wherever they could find a space. Now, sometimes the spaces weren't actually big enough to be able to play, and they would play in lots on streets. Downside of that is baseballs break windows, and cheering and excited fans disrupt the neighborhood. So you never know. Cops might be called, or very angry neighbors may have come around. So as the game progressed, it was realized that baseball needed a place to play. One of the earliest places that baseball was played is actually the New York Polo Fields. Now, this was an early start to the baseball history of New York City, but the New York Polo Fields, the game of polo, is where some of the original baseball games were played in New York. Now, as demand required, it was want to go back. People realized if we build stadiums or places for them to play, we could probably charge money for people to come visit. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not the whole reason that baseball stadiums were designed, but it is one that was really important to the development of stadiums. Now, originally, stadiums were made of wood. That was the common building material of the time. The late 1800s, early 1900s, as they built places for the game to be played, they used the materials they had. They were wooden structures. There are some downsides to using wood. One, large crowds, fire hazards. So as the Industrial Revolution moved on, we had stadiums being made of cement and steel. Much sturdier, much bigger complexes, and a little bit on the safer side. Now, wood was still used, but the main materials were cement and steel. Now, this allowed us to actually build bigger and better stadiums. The bigger the better stadiums, the more fans can come to the game and actually have some sort of shelter. This is the original Yankee Stadium in New York City, actually the Bronx, close to where I live. This stadium has been replaced, but I love, and I'll show you a picture of it, they've used the original design to inspire the next generation of stadiums. But by using concrete and steel, it allowed us to actually get more people into the game. Now, as time progressed, they continue to build bigger, better, and that's one of the amazing things with engineering. As engineering progresses, we learn more and more about the materials that we can use and how to better use them. But for a very long time, cement and steel were the only materials. But as engineering got great, so did the stadiums. This stadium here, remember I said the original Yankee Stadium? This is the new Yankee Stadium. And if you look at it, it looks very similar to the original design. And they paid homage to what was originally there, because if they had not, I'm pretty sure there would have been some Yankee fans that would have been upset. Now, it's amazing with some engineering knowledge what we can now do with stadiums. We've got stadiums that open, close, move. I mean, it's amazing what they do. They can be built pretty much anywhere that there's space. Now, this is very similar to a baseball field that I hold true to my heart, Safeco Field. And I've got a picture in here somewhere. I think it was actually with Yankee Stadium. That actually opens and closes, weather permitting, like in Seattle. The designers of that stadium wanted something that they could open when the weather was nice, and as we all know, Seattle is a little on the misty rain side, so they could close it and continue to play games outside. So what comes next? With everything that is changing in the world right now, how do we keep everyone safe? That's a big concern. In the early days with the wooden structures, they moved to cement and steel because they were actually stronger and actually would be fire resistant, but the world is changing and we've got a lot of new demands. So your focus is what comes next. How do we keep everyone safe? And when I say safe, we've got a couple different challenges when we have public arenas. We've got huge crowds coming and leaving the stadiums, and they're all using a certain amount of entrances because we need to regulate the flow, collect tickets, blah, 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 blah. But what happens is large crowds go into very small spaces. That would be one of our first concerns. Then, player safety. The dugouts where the players congregate during the game. There's the lockers, all the different areas that the team uses are under pretty tight restraints because we're limited in the space that we have in our stadium. And then the last piece is spectator safety, or the people that go to the games, the fans. We got to put a lot of people in a very, very small amount of space. How do we keep everybody safe? So that's your challenge. What will you design to make stadiums safer? Now, don't try to do all of it, and you can actually do a stadium design if you want, but try to target a very specific place, whether it's the entrances or the exits. Would it be the player safety or would it be the fan safety? And remember, along with the seating area of the spectators, you also have concessions, you have walking areas. There's a lot of places that the spectators or the fans are going to frequent along in viewing the game. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do a little bit of research about a particular area of a baseball stadium. Look at the history of how people got in and out of stadiums. Look at the seating history. Look at the concessions history. You know, even the idea of using restrooms within a stadium has evolved over time. So I want you to take that research and then predict what could you do to make moderations or changes of what's being used in the stadium to make stadiums safer and a better environment for all of us, and then design it. And now how you do your designing is really up to you. Some people like to do flat sketches. Some people like to build models. One of the things I'd like to suggest is that you use a 3D printing software. Tinkercad is one of my favorites because it is a free software and it is relatively easy to use. It's a little tricky in the beginning, but once you get the use of it, it's great because you can move things in every dimension and see what you're actually building. Here's an example of an actual baseball player that was printed on a 3D printer. And don't worry whether we're going to be able to print them or not. Being able to design in 3D is a pretty amazing tool, a relatively new one for us, especially in education. But jump in. And I'm not saying Tinkercad's the only 3D printing software to use, but it's the one that I feel most comfortable with, and the students that I work with like it as well. So research the areas of a baseball stadium and what are you going to design to make life safer and better for the spectators, for the players, for the people that work the stadium. You decide the changes you're going to make and then do it. It's been STEM Stories with Mr. Ewing. Thanks.